If you're looking to save on your fuel costs, there are two obvious and somewhat affordable choices, at least compared to pure electric. There's this. It's a 2016 Toyota RAV4 hybrid. And there's this. It's a 2016 Jeep Grand Cherokee diesel. Now, of course, these two vehicles don't compete. One is a hybrid, one is a diesel, but they do compete when it comes to how much money you'll save at the pump. Now, the RAV4 is supposed to get 31 MPG on the highway, and this Jeep, 28. So, let's find out which of these two is the better alternative by mashing them up on a 100-mile MPG loop. Couldn't make it simple, could you, Toyota? Now this is where it gets a little tricky and perhaps unfair, because a hybrid is meant to do much better in the city. And in fact, I've got the Monroney right here. When it comes to MPG, this gets 33 combined, but only 31 on the highway. All right, the rules of the game are very straightforward. We fill up the vehicle with diesel, hopefully. And then, come on. And then we drive our 100-mile MPG loop. Actually, it's about 98 miles. And then we come back here and we fill it up again and we see what the car says. In this case, the Jeep, for all you four-wheeling Jeep types out there, and what the pump says. And that'll give us our MPG loop. And by the way, if you're curious, we're paying $2 and almost 15 cents a gallon for the diesel. Now, a diesel with all that torque does a lot better on the highway. According to the EPA, we're talking 24 combined, but get this number, 28 on the highway. So we just filled up the Jeep, and now we're gonna fill up the RAV4. Of course, fuel for the RAV4, gasoline is a little more expensive, $2.35, almost $2.35 a gallon. And unlike the Jeep, as you can tell, there's no DEF fluid that has to go into the RAV4. All the magic happens on the inside of the car. And by the way, if you're curious about a hybrid system, there's really no need for any additional plug-ins or charging. It just gives you the best fuel economy you can from the computer's point of view. Okay, there we go. Filled up. Let's hit the road. Okay, we get it. These two don't compete. That Jeep costs over $56,000 and this costs over $34,000. All right, I'm on the highway now, and you can tell I reset my MPG odometer. So sometimes there's a significant difference between what the car says and what the pump says. We'll find that out at the end of this 100-mile loop. Now, this hybrid RAV4 starts at 33,610, and I've got my notes just to give you a comparison. The RAV4 XLE starts at 28,370. That is a significant difference. So you are paying a premium for hybrid power. Is it worth it? Here, the gas is basically 20 cents more a gallon. It's going to take you, well, the rest of your life to pay that back. So it probably isn't worth it. But if fuel goes up to $5 a gallon, then it probably starts making sense. The other thing you feel good about, of course, is the higher fuel economy when you're in the hybrid, because you can, at lower speeds, even run in EV mode for short periods of time. You have a hybrid powertrain. It's an electric motor paired to a gasoline engine, and combined puts out 194 horsepower and 206 pound-feet of torque. And of course, just like the Jeep, it powers all four wheels. Well, most of the time, usually just powers the front wheels. Now, I gotta tell you, I like the interior of this refreshed RAV4. Toyota's done a really good job at injecting personality into the look of it. The front end is, well, kind of alien spaceship-like, which isn't a bad thing. The interior, everything I see and touch and feel is relatively expensive. Nothing's kind of plasticky or hard. So let's pump it into sport mode. to get the most possible horsepower and, of course, the fastest time. Here we go. I'm just going to floor it. .96, or actually 9.95. That last tenth of a second would make the difference between smoking that Hellcat. I'm just kidding. So this time I'm going to do it one more time. Now this should theoretically have a little bit of an advantage because it is partially electric, and electric isn't affected by the fact that we're at a mile above sea level here. So it should be a little bit of an advantage for the RAV4 hybrid, but you know, that may not be true because there is still a regular gas engine and a CVT. All right, here we go. I'm gonna floor it one more time. Oh, doesn't give me anything, doesn't matter. I can't brake torque it. So power goes all the way up. Car accelerates in a sort of leisurely fashion. Oh, look at that. Look at that. See, I was right. That tenth of a second, or is it a hundredth of a second? 8.99. We broke 9, man. Yeah, that's right. That's how you do it in the RAV4. I would not be a good rapper, would I? Sorry, guys. But we did break 9 seconds. That's the good news. I shouldn't say this is bad news, but if you love to drive, then hybrids tend to just suck the soul out of the driving experience because they're, let's face it, computers with wheels that are designed to get the best amount of energy out of every sip of gas. You've got the regenerative brakes in this car, which are kind of grabby. You've got the CVT, which is kind of whiny. You've got, well, you've got a car that is very good at getting a lot of miles to the gallon, but not so good at putting a huge smile on your face. But for a lot of people, that's not what transportation's about, right? That they want something where they can have a vehicle that gets them to work and play without any hassles and with great fuel economy. Then this is the car for them. Now, of course, we are mashing it up this time with the Jeep Grand Cherokee. That's a whole different kettle of fish. I'm in the Grand Cherokee just after the turnaround point, and until I accelerated, I was getting 30 MPG on this 100-mile loop, and that is astounding for a big, heavy all-wheel drive Jeep, because keep in mind, this Jeep has all the Jeep off-road goodies as well, including things like air suspension, which makes it great off-road, and it allows it actually to be relatively more aerodynamic on the road because the Jeep can lower itself at highway speeds. Only 240 horsepower, but that's not the important number. 420 pound-feet of torque paired to an 8-speed automatic. The RAV4 paired to a CVT. Both these vehicles are paired to transmissions that are meant to maximize their fuel efficiency. Now, this is, of course, a much different vehicle. It is much more expensive. We're looking at over $56,000, but you get a lot more for that, of course. You get a vehicle that is clad in leather, has a lot of luxury features, a sunroof that goes all the way to the back seat, heated seats, heated steering wheel, cooled seats. I mean, it just goes on and on. A lot of technology, blind spot monitoring, a lot of stuff that you'd find in more luxurious vehicles. Now, we've done an off-road review of this Jeep recently from Moab, so if you want to watch us go and take on a Wrangler, just click above. It was a lot of fun. We were really surprised how well this does off-road. Alright guys, 0 to 60 in the Jeep. Solo DL is set up, and as always, we're going to do 2 runs. This should be a torque monster, so we should have tons of torque pushing us forward. Here we go. I'm going to give it a little bit of power. There we go. Whoa! That's a lot of torque. Initially. Then it kind of falls off the ledge. And there's 60. Here we go. 8.27. 8.27. And let's do it again. Going the other way this time. Usually times are very similar, but we'll find out. I think giving it a little brake torquing where I step on the brake and let the turbo spool up is the best way to do it. That's probably the best chance of getting the highest possible amount of torques. And of course the fastest 0 to 60 speed. So I'm gonna let it spool up again here. One more time. Oh, it just jumps up. There we have it. The upside to the diesel is that it gives you, well, we're getting almost 30 MPG on the highway, prodigious amounts of torque, fun acceleration. The downside is you pay for it. There's an almost $5,000 premium that you pay for putting the 3-liter diesel under the hood. And well, let's just take a little sidebar and talk about diesels. In the past, a lot of the car companies have decided that diesels are more expensive to manufacture, more expensive in terms of technology, so they've been charging more for them. But recently I went to the Mercedes GLS launch, and the diesel in the GLS, which is a 3-row vehicle, it's the one size up from this, is actually the entry level. So because of all that's been happening with diesels, and you know what I'm talking about, with the many companies now that are actually being accused of fudging their MPG numbers, Mercedes has decided that diesel is no longer a premium. In fact, it's the entry level in that segment. Does that mean that at some point Jeep will decide that this should be less expensive than the Pentastar or the Hemi? Probably not. Overall, I like this vehicle a lot. I spent a lot of time in the Jeep Grand Cherokee. It's one of Jeep's best products. All right, we're gonna find out what the RAV4 did. Now keep in mind, the car said 29.8, and the Jeep, well, the Jeep said 29. Which of these two is the MPG champion? Will it go to the hybrid or the diesel? Only one way to find out. Okay, here we go. There wasn't much in there. All right, 98 divided by 8.63. All right, 98 divided by 3.672 equals, here we go, ta-da! 26.68? That is really off, Brian. That's our videographer, Brian. There you go. Let me do it one more time just to be absolutely certain about this, because 98, because it isn't quite 100 miles, divided by 3.672 equals 26.688. Wow, wow, that is quite the discrepancy. All right, well, let's find out how the Jeep did. Well, we have a little bit of a competition going because the Jeep said 29, but as you can tell by the discrepancy with the Toyota, that doesn't mean a lot often. Question is, what will the real world numbers say? Also keep in mind that diesels tend to have, well, an advantage on the highway. A lot of torque, lots of oomph, whereas hybrids tend to have an advantage in the city. So theoretically, this should do better on the highway. Of course, it's much heavier, it's much bigger. The Toyota, just for a reminder, got this. 26.68. So the question is, can the Jeep beat that? All right, let's do the math. We have 98 divided by 3.223. Here we go. Ta-da! Oh, look at there. So the Jeep not only beat it, it dropped it, man. It just completely and utterly stomped on the hybrid. And that was relatively unexpected because this got a mile per gallon more than the vehicle said, and that got, well, over 3 miles per gallon less. That's why we do real world testing. Diesels have been around almost as long as the automobile. Of course, hybrids are relatively new, about 20 years. Now, if you really wanted to get the most fuel efficient, you'd probably want to take a small displacement diesel and combine it with the hybrid. That would be much more fuel efficient. So why don't manufacturers do that? Well, you're probably also adding a substantial amount of cost. Now, some of you may be wondering, why don't we mash these cars up with cars that are more competitive? And the reason is, it's hard to get our hands on cars, so we make do with what we're given, and sometimes we get apples to apples and sometimes we don't, and this is of course one of those times when we didn't. As always, this is Roman reporting for the Fast Lane Car. Check out tflcar.com for more news, views, and of course real world MPG mashup reviews. And yeah, don't type that cars don't compete. We know they don't compete, but they're still cool. As you can tell by the length of my shadow, sun is going down and I've had a hell of a day. Bentley flew me out here to drive this, the most luxurious, the most expensive SUV you can buy. And I took it off-road, I took it into the desert, I took a helicopter to get to the desert. You know what? Instead of telling you about it, why don't I show you? And that is coming up right now on the Fast Lane Car. I mean, come on, this is as much fun as it gets, right? Sure. To take a car like this that, let's face it, I doubt anybody will take out here, right?
Oh, I doubt it,
to take a car like this and actually kind of drift it through these dunes is so much fun.